Greetings, everyone. Today I want to tell you a story about Mr. Apple and his amazing journey. But first, we must discuss the cult classic Blade Runner. If you search on YouTube for the title Blade Runner Enhanced Scene, you will witness what seems impossible. Rick Deckard is reviewing a video. However, he's able to zoom in and then explore it as if it were a 3D rendering. As mind-bending as this seems, there are versions of this concept that might be possible with the right technology. So, back to Mr. Apple. A shiny, ripe, cosmic crisp apple, born and bred in Washington State, next to the Columbia River. His father was an Enterprise, his mother a Honeycrisp, and his grandfather, the horticulturalist Bruce Barrett. Although his childhood was idyllic, he had a restless soul, and one fine summer day set out on the adventure of a lifetime. With fond farewells, he hopped on the nearest train heading west, and went off in search of his destiny. When he eventually made it to the west coast, he hitchhiked for a bit, trying to get to Point Doom. Arriving on the sidecar of a generous motorcyclist, Mr. Apple thanked him and rolled along his way up the peninsula that overlooked the ocean. At the top, he stopped and took it all in. The beautiful water meeting the baby blue horizon, the cool ocean air refreshing his skin, the, "Hey there, little apple, you lost?" a voice sounded behind him. Turning, Mr. Apple set his eye on a small crowd that had gathered behind him. Timidly, he said, But before he could reveal a single fact about himself, the crowd started interjecting, and now we will talk about the crowd. Firstly, there was a soccer mom. Then, there was a produce manager at a local grocery store. Also, there was a train conductor. Finally, there was a botanist on a field trip to take samples of local succulents. Each of these people contained in their minds a manifold of all things they knew as Apple. Some of it facts, truths, social media shorts, falsehoods, and perhaps even lies. And any of this data, if factual, was exterior to all that was Mr. Apple. He just contained the particles that made up his mass. So, how does this relate to the scene in Blade Runner? Well, if Deckard used tech that could extrapolate a 2D image into a searchable 3 or 4D rendering, what could all this exterior data do for our crowd? Recently, there was a study that used MRI scans of individuals viewing pictures, and through AI analysis of their brains, recreated fairly close images to what they saw. If we take that concept and concepts like it, we can predict a scaled simulation and possible rendering of all the events that delivered Mr. Apple to that sea cliff, overlooking the glistening ocean. The fidelity of that image, however, depends on the observer of Mr. Apple. The soccer mom probably knows about as much as I do. Apples are known to come from Washington. They have stickers of origin and type. They are usually crisp, sweet, and make a good snack. She might even know the approximate number of calories and other nutritional info. So, a simulation from her memories would most likely be like a vague, choppy PowerPoint presentation, and mostly two-dimensional. But if we turn to the mind of the produce manager, then we get a more 3- and 4-dimensional simulation. The manager might know what the soccer mom did, but also the distribution chain, the vendor, the trip time from Washington to California, and so on. His version of the data surrounding Mr. Apple would be much closer to the actual events and facts that might be recreatable and therefore searchable. However, the train conductor might have intimate data about her trip. So let's say she was the exact conductor that drove the train Mr. Apple traveled on. Well, if she walked the train often, she would have a detailed 3 and 4D manifold of the entire train. So her brain scan would provide the framework of the exact same technology that Deckard had used. Although the exact movement and behaviors of Mr. Apple are still unknown, we know what he must have seen, felt, etc. while riding the train. But what if we had an objective observer, What if the train had video cameras on it? This, combined with all the knowledge of the crowd so far, would give us a very accurate simulation of the conditions of the train and Mr. Apple's movements and placements within the train. Now, the botanist chimes in. He might know the genetics of the apple, the ancestry of the modern apple, growing conditions, etc. This adds another precise, intimate layer to the external data about the apple. However, if the botanist is precise, then the embodied data of the apple, the mass, chemical makeup, molecular structure, etc., will match the exterior manifold in the botanist's brain. So, in conclusion, although any matter has intrinsic and embodied data based completely on factual 0 time plus 1 increments, there is another, greater volume of data related to that matter which exists in complex minds such as animals, humans, and AI. And it is this exterior data, when combined with technology, that can allow simulations in higher and higher fidelity and dimensions. As the parallax between an object and the observer gets smaller and smaller, approaching zero parallax, the precision and accuracy of the manifold of the object within the mind of the observer becomes more and more factual. Therefore, the goal of any simulations or outputs such as the transporter, the holodeck, and the replicator in Star Trek would be to reach zero data parallax between an object and the observer or the device used for recreation of that data. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I welcome your comments and ideas. Please keep them respectful, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.